Do you want to survive in America? These are 10 idioms that are absolutely mandatory to know if you want to speak fluent, normal English and survive in the United States of America. Number 1, beat around the bush. Okay, so beat around the bush basically means that you're not getting straight to the point. You're kind of like avoiding the problem, avoiding the topic, if that makes sense. Which is kind of like it's kind of the polar opposite to one we discussed last time. Cut to the chase. Cut to the chase is getting directly to the point. Beat around the bush is avoiding the point, right? Avoiding the problem, avoiding the bush, so to speak. So, like for example, if someone's asking you where you were last night, and you just changed the topic, and you just started talking about something else, or calling in, basically just avoiding what they were asking you, you're beating around the bush, right? Someone asked me, hey, where were you last night? And I'm like, oh, I was eating dinner earlier in the day. I was eating breakfast earlier in the day. And then, obviously I went to bed at night. Like, well, where were you at this time? And you're just ignoring it. You're like, well, hey, they're like, where were you at 7? And you're like, oh, well, at 4 o'clock I was here. Like, that's irrelevant. That's beating around the bush. Beating around the bush. You're avoiding the problem. You're avoiding the subject. Number 2 is bite the bullet. So bite the bullet basically means it's kind of like get straight to the point, but when it comes to something unpleasant. So it's basically like you're biting the bullet. You're like, we're going to do it, and you just do it. So say that you have to, run to your car, and it is pouring rain, and it is storming outside, and it is looking like a not fun time. You bite the bullet. You get to it, you go straight through the rain, you get to your car. So doing something difficult, getting to it, that is biting the bullet. Number 3, on the ball. So on the ball means it means to do something correctly, but quickly, if that makes sense. You are really good at it, and you are quick about it. On the ball, you have gotten to it. Means also you're being alert as well. But yeah, so on the ball is pretty straightforward. It would just mean that you're good at something. So if I'm I'm doing an exercise and I'm doing it really well, my buddy might be like, hey, that was on the ball. You did that perfectly. That's basically what that means. Just to I'll be honest with you, I don't hear this one that often. It is definitely a phrase that is said, but it's not one that I personally interact with a lot. I personally don't say it a ton. But no, it is definitely one that is said, and it really just means that you're doing a good job at something, right? It's not really something to think that much into. But on the ball is number 3. Number 4 is hang in there. So hang in there basically means stay strong, tough it out. So if you are having a rough time, you're in a bad phase of your life or whatever, you're going through a divorce, something rough, someone like, hey, hang in there. Which, to be honest with you, now that I think about it, it sounds like it would be telling someone to toughen up or tough it out. Hey, you got this, stay strong. I don't know. To me personally, that doesn't seem horribly comforting, but the phrase is supposed to be comforting. It is just something that's said. Hang in there, something that people say when someone's having a rough time. Like, hey man, you got this. Stay strong, hang in there. It'll get better. So that's just a phrase that people say. It's kind of like a consolation phrase, but that's what hang in there means. This one is used all the time. We are on to number 5. Number 5 is miss the boat. Miss the boat. I've got to be honest with you. When I was writing this down, I once again wouldn't say this is one that is used that frequently. I know it exists, but where I am, it is not used that much. Now, it is something that is possible you will hear, and to be honest with you, when it comes to American English, the thing to understand is different areas of America, you'll find new idioms and new phrases that are common there. There's some things that are said in the South that are not said here in the Midwest. There's some things said in the Midwest that aren't said in the South or the East Coast, so on and so forth. You just hear things in different states and different areas of the country, you'll hear different things. So the theory behind miss the boat just essentially means, miss the objective or miss an opportunity, if that makes sense. So, you miss the opportunity, you miss the boat. But, I wouldn't really worry that much about that one. That's one that you should know. But, especially for where I am, it's not one necessarily you're going to counter as much as the other ones. I throw it in here as an honorable mention, but it's not something that's huge. But it is good to know just in case. So, miss the boat, miss the opportunity. This one's huge. Number 6. take it with a grain of salt. I hear this one all the time. This is very commonly used. And to be honest with you, to someone that doesn't speak natural English, or to someone that, is not a native speaker, especially in America, like, this makes no sense, at least in my opinion. Like, if I was just learning English, this would make no sense to me. Take it with a grain of salt. What the fuck does that mean? Like, who knows what the fuck that means? That doesn't make any sense. But what that means is basically be cautious and, like, untrustworthy of something. Like, don't be over-believing. So, for example, someone would say, take the media with a grain of salt. They're saying, don't necessarily listen to everything you're told on the media. That's what they would mean by that, Take it with a grain of salt. So, like, oh, this person's not trustworthy. Take what they say with a grain of salt. It's like, basically pick through it and be skeptical. Be skeptical of what they're saying, Take it with a grain of salt. So, I guess... yeah, I don't know what the theory behind the phrase was supposed to be. I really don't. This is what it means, but I don't know why it means that. But it's just what people will say. So, number 7 is get the hang of it. So, get the hang of it's also huge. But that one essentially, that's one that you'll hear. It basically means you learned something. So, like, you have accomplished something, I guess. You have become proficient at it. So, to say get the hang of it, like, for example, if I'm training someone at work, right? And they're having a rough time with it, I'll be like, don't worry, you'll get the hang of it. Meaning, you do it enough, you'll learn, you'll become proficient at it, you'll be pretty good at it. So get the hang of it is something that you'll say in that context. You'll hear that a lot in that context. I hear of it a lot in the work context as well, at your job, because they'll be like, hey, the newbies got in the hang of it, the trainees got in the hang of it. So that's kind of what they mean. It's just, hey, they got good at it, you'll get good at it eventually, you'll get the hang of it. So that's kind of what that means. Just becoming proficient, becoming good, becoming learned at something. So get the hang of it. That's what that means. 8 is back to square one. That just means going back to the way beginning. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of sounds like exactly what it is. Back to square one just means you're back to the starting point. Whatever happened, you screwed it up, you're back to the beginning, There is, everything beforehand is irrelevant. You are back to step one. If you're playing a video game and, you don't save and you die and you end up at the way beginning, you're back to square one. You have to do all that shit again. You are back to square one. It doesn't matter all the work you put in. You are back to the beginning. That's what that means. Back to the beginning, back to square one, back to your starting point. I do hear that one a lot. I do hear it a lot in the video game context as well. But I'll be honest with you, I hear that about everything. You'll hear that about everything. If someone has an idea and it just flops, they'll be like, back to square one. That's a big one that's used. Now, number 9 is costs an arm and a leg. So, costs an arm and a leg is just a fancy way of basically saying it was rough. Or it was, I guess in the cost sense, it'd be like it was expensive. It was pricey. Either, in the non-literal sense where it was like, hey, doing this cost me an arm and a leg, meaning like it was a lot of effort, a lot of work, it was a lot of price, it was very expensive, like effort-wise, or in the literal sense where you'll be like, hey, that couch cost me an arm and a leg, so they're being like, hey, yeah, that was expensive, it cost me a lot of literal money, they're literally saying it's expensive, cost me an arm and a leg, I guess the premise behind that is just that, you gave up so much, you might as well give up an arm or a leg, it was so expensive, but, I mean, honestly, such a weird phrase, but, like, that's English for you, that's American English, all sorts of weird idioms, but cost an arm or a leg is number 9, pretty self-explanatory, it's expensive. Number 10, the final one, is in the same boat. That means that you are in it together, you are in the same situation as someone else. So, if I'm with, my friend, and he's telling me that, like, hey, he's been working so much lately and, it's been rough. And I've been working a lot and it's been rough. I could be like, hey, man, I'm in the same boat. I've been doing the same thing. I understand where you're coming from because I'm experiencing the same shit in the same boat, You're doing, you're struggling or doing the same thing that someone else is. So you would just be like, hey, I'm in the same boat. It just means that you relate to them because, you're experiencing the same stuff. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but still really good to learn. So that's number 10. That is the final one for this video. This is probably going to be a very long series if I were to make a guess because there are so many idioms in English that are crucial, absolutely crucial to know. And to be honest with you, I want to make sure that I tell you guys about every single one. That's what we do on this channel. For those of you that are new, is we take the Americanized version of English with all its slangy and terms and idioms and abbreviations and all those things that they don't teach you necessarily in textbooks. That's what we're here for. That's what this channel is about. And we're going to keep doing this for you guys every single time. So that is what we're about, and we will probably be doing a lot more videos like this. But anyways, if you liked it, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us what you thought in the comments. Tell us if there's any specific idiom that you are having a problem with that you would like us to explain, or just anything you want us to do a video on in the future. We love your ideas. More than happy to help, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.